Your Majesties, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for always returning. Trust you and yours are well, and you're loving yourself and others like always. Many thanks to all of you for the support you give to the channel, to our channel members, anonymous supporters, to all of you, my esteemed subscribers. You are all loved, celebrated, and appreciated. So today I'm taking you to the lost indigenous grains of the continent of Africa, of the motherland. That is to say, we will talk about food, what we eat, because we are what we eat, of course. So when we're not eating the right food, of course, it's gonna have effects, and over time our systems get used to foods that are not of us, and you discover that gradually we become what we are not. Yeah, so the truth is that a lot of the food that our ancestors ate and they lived longer, a lot of the food that ancestors ate and they were stronger, they are more in tune with the spiritual world, they are more in tune with nature. Most of those food are gradually fading away. We are either throwing it away because we feel now that we are civilized people, so they are food that we eat. No, I can't eat that. So my goodness, I can't eat that. Oh my goodness, what are you eating? You know, we feel like since we've reached a stage in life, we are learning to a point, so there are food that we're not going to eat anymore, and this is the source of our dying younger, because of course there are other things, there are other factors to why we age faster these days, to why we tend not to live up to the age. Of course, something happened that did something to it's something that when we begin to go into it's a lot, but spiritually, the other word, something was done, and that's why we are what we are. Please don't come in with all this religious and say, oh, it's God that's shortening our days and what have you. Whatever you believe in, please, I respect your beliefs, please respect mine. So there are lots of factors to why we can't live up to the age we have to. Now you hear that especially from the Bible itself, those of you who are very conversant with the Bible, and those of you who are conversant with other history books outside, now you discover that there were people who lived 900 years, 300, 150, 200, 300, 500, and the rest of them. There were people who lived very old in this world. But it's so difficult these days to even live up to 100. There are reasons why, and it's the factors is just everything around us. Everything around us is designed in the way that it suppresses our growth. It designs in the way that it affects us spiritually, physically, otherwise, and everything. So when we eat things that are not really organic, those who are outside the continent is understandable, but some of us who are in the continent and feel like we cannot eat our local food, we cannot eat what we have, and that's why you see I was talking about food the other time, organic food, and I say what we eat have effect on us. Okay, while I was talking about Nigeria diverting from agriculture totally to oil, I felt something was not okay with that, because we need to be alive to still use the oil. We can't drink oil, we can't eat oil. We can eat from the agricultural produces that we have. We can live long through our agricultural produces. We can heal ourselves through our farming and other things that we might go into when we delve more into agriculture. There are lots of things that we can explore to help ourselves. Our ancestors lived lived with nature. They lived in the forest. They lived in the bush, whichever word you want to use for it. They lived with nature every day. So it was easier to just go pluck this and eat, or go harvest this and eat. That was how they lived, they grew, and their span of life was longer. So let's see some of this food that we have and that can be of use to us, right?
Lost Grains of Africa, Part 1. This video contains excerpts from the book Lost Crops of Africa, Volume 1. Beyond the proxy wars, local and foreign-sponsored armed groups, the fight for natural resources, and the other negative things going on in Africa, there is a critical part of African life that is undergoing massive warfare right now, which we are not paying close enough attention to. And it's a shame because it affects us, our physical bodies, directly. I'm speaking of the war to annihilate African indigenous food crops in favor of GMOs and foreign crops which are not compatible with the dietary needs of the African people. Just as we have done with many areas of our lives, we as Africans have somehow told ourselves that indigenous foods from Africa are inferior to imported food. And we need to act now to change that false narrative. The future of Africa as a continent and a people largely depends on that change. Every region of the world has their unique food crops and food systems that are uniquely tailored and adapted to their nutritional needs, health, and well-being. And Africa is not exempted. Much of this is climate-related, soil-related, water-related. The food responds to the need of the environment and the people that live there. So, in this video, we will be looking at some of the lost grains of Africa. I cannot stress enough that we need to start eating our indigenous food crops again and also protect them from the hands of the people who are poisoning the world through monster foods and agrochemical-based farming practices for purposes of benefiting themselves commercially. Why is it important that we take a look at Africa's indigenous grains? First, they are uniquely designed, created, adapted for Africa's nutritional requirements and health. Second, they were uniquely created for our type of climate, which does not make them require too many inputs to grow them. Third, for people to dissociate themselves from their indigenous food crops, grains, vegetables, and even fruits, for whatever reason, is to set themselves on a path of self-destruction. What was African food like before we started westernizing and opening ourselves to all manner of diseases? We have to go back to those foods. Our overall health is greatly tied to them. Our friend Dr. Githai explained to us that even during changes of seasons, the body needs specific nutrients that are available from specific plants and specific fruits in the environment around them. Food is intelligent. Our bodies are intelligent. Together they work to provide for you optimal health. There was nothing left to chance when God created things. Now, here is a short list of some indigenous African grains that we need to begin to eat again and also start to protect before they are wiped out by wicked minds who only see money and not people. Be reminded that this list is not exhaustive. African rice. Most people think of rice as an exclusively Asian crop. I know I did for the longest time. But farmers have grown native rice, species Oryza glaberrima, in parts of West Africa for at least 1,500 years. The fact is that there are only two species of rice in the world, Asian, which is Oryza sativa, and African, which is Oryza glaberrima. One of them is healthy and good for you as an African, but not many Africans eat it. Many Africans don't even know it exists. The other is not quite so healthy, but everyone loves it. Did you know, for example, that much of the state of South Carolina in the US was once covered in fields of African rice brought over by the Africans who were stolen from Africa? Or that it was first cultivated in Mali several thousand years ago? This crop comes in a wealth of different types that are planted, managed, prepared, and eaten differently. Some mature quickly and will fit into seasons and situations where other cereals fail. The grain is much like common rice, although the husk around it is usually red. This plant not only has promise in its own right, but its genes might also eventually benefit the production of common rice worldwide. Finger millet. In parts of East and Central Africa, not to mention India, millions of people have lived off finger millet, species Eleusine coracana, for centuries. One of the most nutritious of the major cereals, it is rich in methionine, an amino acid critically lacking in the diets of hundreds of millions of the world's poor. The plant yields satisfactorily on marginal lands, and its tasty grain is remarkable for its long storage life. The fact that certain Africans thrive on just one meal a day is attributed to the nutritive value and filling nature of this grain. Fonio or acha, an indigenous West African crop, fonio, comprising two species, Digitaria exilis and Digitaria iburua, is grown mainly on small farms for home consumption. It's probably the world's fastest maturing cereal and is particularly important as a safety net for producing when other foods are in short supply or market prices are too high for poor people to afford. But fonio is much more than just a fallback food. It's also a gourmet grain. People enjoy it as a porridge, in soups, or as couscous with fish or meat. The plant grows well on poor sandy soils. It too is rich in the amino acid methionine. It also has a high level of cysteine, a feature that is an even rarer find in a cereal. With its appealing taste and high nutritional value, this could become a widespread gourmet grain for savanna regions, perhaps throughout much of Africa or even much of the world. It might well have a big future as a cash crop.
We have heard all that. Food is important. As people, we need food. And do not forget that you are what you eat. So if you want to keep healthy, you have to look at what you take into your system, what you allow into your body, because of course, your body interacts with this food and this food interacts with your body, with our body. So if it's a food that is not of us, just imagine how our bodies will feel that we are feeding ourselves what is not of us. So it's important that as Africans, we do not throw away some of these are indigenous foods that we eat, indigenous grains, whatever you call it. It's not just this, there are lots of them, a whole list of them that we have to protect. We have to protect and not to feel like, oh, we can't eat this because we are now civilized people. I know families that see eating noodles as something that is so special that they do not even care about some of these greens to eat them. They're only interested in eating noodles, eating spaghetti, and some of these other food that are not even good to the system. There is nothing wrong with you eating noodles, but when it becomes a habit or when you begin to see it like, I eat noodles because I'm a civilized person. I don't know what happened to our senses as Africans. I sometimes is like, oh my goodness, what is really going on with us as a people? So do leave your comments and thought at the section what you think about preserving our indigenous foods and some of these greens and eating them and propagating them as well so that it doesn't fade away, because these are what our ancestors ate and they lived their life to the fullest until when it was time for them to depart this life to the next life. So I will see you in my next one. Until then, love yourself, love others, stay safe, stay positive, always your majesties. Bye for now.